Okay, so we're at the end of chapter 5, really, kind of, sort of. I say really, kind of, sort of, because we have some other activities that we're going to do. Let me go ahead and give you your interims. Makes it all look like you did very, very well in all your classes. That's always nice to see. I always hate seeing when one of my students has like an F in a class, because I'm like, what am I doing that you're getting an F in another class? Am I being too easy? So you've got all good grades, and I don't feel like I'm being too easy on you. Or likewise, something else is going on, I guess, or something. So, okay, so we just did that. We basically covered all the material, right, in this chapter. So we're going to do some review. We're going to do some activities. You're going to take the test on the day that I'm gone next week, though. Okay. So we have a couple other things we're going to do. We've done the hands-on stuff. Okay. There's not really no other testing we can do. There's some servers we could test and stuff, but there's really no reason to. Okay. So you did all the hands-on in 210. It gave you more than enough chance to run all the different tests. Okay. But I want to talk about memory. I want to go through and unfreeze myself. I want to go through the self-assessment first, and then after that, we got some activities you're going to do to try to help you get ready for the test and make sure you understand some of the things practical-wise. And then we're going to start a new writing activity today and Monday. We may not even get to it till Monday, theoretically, because we've got a shorter class today, right? So we may not get all the review done even till Monday and start the blogging, because we're going to start blogging in our class. And if we haven't done an English class before, we're going to cover all that stuff. So it shouldn't be anything huge new to you. Okay, so let's just look at your class and not historic classes on that stuff. So what's the first thing? Difference between static and dynamic RAM. Did everybody redo this, by the way? Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna go back all the way together, and we'll kind of cover things together. In fact, I'm gonna make this a review while we go. Okay, so this chapter is on memory. Okay, and we know there's, first of all, two kinds of memory. There's RAM and there's ROM. Okay. Okay. First of all, we'll talk about ROM. What is ROM? What's it stand for? Read-only memory. Okay. So read-only memory. It's memory that we don't have ready access to, that we don't write to, that we usually only read from. Where is a read-only memory in our PC that we know? There's a program there. BIOS, okay. So the thing that we've talked about the most in this class is the BIOS program, the basic input-output system that runs every single time we start our computer. Exists on ROM, okay. It's there permanently. No, why there? It's permanently, and permanently is I'm going to put a little delta at the end. Permanent, kind of, sort of, okay. So permanently meaning that if it's in read-only memory, it doesn't matter whether we lose power, that program is going to be in ROM. Okay? It's going to be in ROM, and it's going to stay there forever, kind of, sort of. Okay? When I say kind of, sort of, what I'm saying is just because it's read-only doesn't mean you can't ever write to it. Okay? So the BIOS program on this computer is, I don't even know what version, but if I wanted to, for the T3500 Dell BIOS, if I spelled it right, I didn't, but we'll pretend I did. There we go. So I could go out, if I wanted to update that program, that BIOS program. I could go and update it to version A13 that came out in November. I could download that file, and I could reprogram my BIOS if I wanted to. And that happens from time to time if new things come out and my BIOS doesn't know how to handle them. And I think I talked about in those PCs that you guys tear apart, we had to reprogram the BIOS at one time for it to understand what memory was there. But for the main part, BIOS is permanent, it stays there. And then we've got RAM, which stands for Random Access Memory. Okay, so RAM is really what we've talked about most in this chapter, right? Or Random Access Memory. First of all, if we can remember all the way back to chapter 1, it is also called primary memory. Oh, I'm sorry, I said memory. It's also called primary, what word am I looking for? Storage, yeah. It's also called primary storage. Okay. It is volatile or temporary. Okay, it is what the CPU writes to when the CPU is doing its computations. It is the only place the CPU talks to. It only talks to RAM. Okay, it is where the CPU stores stuff while it's thinking. The CPU doesn't really even know about the hard drive. It only knows about RAM. Hard drive, secondary storage, the motherboard moves stuff there. Okay, the memory manager moves stuff there. But as far as the CPU knows, it's only talking to RAM. Okay, it's what it uses while it's doing its computations. And we've got two kinds of RAMs in our system. We've got static RAM, and we've got dynamic RAM. Tell me one thing about static RAM, Lane.
It's faster.
Okay, yeah, static RAM is faster. Tell me something else, Brooke. Yeah, well, okay, that's true, both of them, yeah, it needs power to stay there. Okay, I'll put that down there. That is a fact. Michelle, give me something else about static RAM.
Doesn't it work with the CPU?
Okay.
It's like, because dynamics like on like.
Now, don't tell me about dynamic. Tell me about static.
Okay,
We'll get to dynamic later. What about the CPU? It is the CPU.
Cache?
Yeah, okay. So, CPU cache is static RAM. That's where we have static RAM in our PC. Anybody got one more thing you can tell me about static RAM? I got two more in my head.
It doesn't constantly refresh.
Does not need refresh. Does not need refreshed. Okay.
More expensive.
And that was the last one I was thinking of, okay? It's more expensive. It's the most expensive kind of RAM. Okay, so we've got static RAM in our computer. It's the fastest kind. Both of these kinds of RAM, because it's RAM is volatile. It requires power, okay, to maintain that information inside the memory. It exists as cache on our CPU. It does not need to be refreshed. That's what's static about it, and it costs more money, okay? So static RAM is what we have our CPU. Oh, I didn't mean to delete that slide. I meant to go to a new slide. That slide's deleted. It's gone forever. I wonder if I can undo. Oh, undo. Undo. Okay. Whew. Okay. So while we're here, let's talk about CPU cache. Okay, because that is our static RAM. It is still part of primary storage on our thing, and so we've got three different kinds of cache. Give me one of them, Lane.
L1.
L1, where does L1 exist?
On this.
Okay, I'm going to say on the die or on the processor. Okay, then we got L2. It exists right off the processor, but both these are per processor. Okay, we're going to pretend you can read that later. And the last kind is
L3.
L3,
Shared.
which is shared. Okay, so we've got three kinds of cache that we can have. So if I was to ask you a question about cache, and I said, it sent you to a website on a CPU, and I just said, how much of this memory is shared? I would look at the L3 cache number and say 6 meg is shared. Okay? And when we're looking at CPU cache, I did it again. Undo. I keep wanting to push that button. Okay, so we're looking at CPU cache. We're really looking at it in kilobytes and megabytes, okay? They're small numbers, okay? And when we talk about memory, and I don't think I ever said this, memory kind of goes in sequences of size. It used to be, and when we had our first RAM, it was 4 meg, and then we got 8, and then we got 16, and then we got 32. Oh, that's not a 32 in any way, shape, or form. But now, with current memory, when we look at sizes of memory, we're really looking at starting at like 128K. You're not going to see anything smaller than that. And you'll see 256K K, and these are in multiples of things. So and then we'll see 512K, and then we'll see 1024K, which equals 1 megabyte, so kilobyte, megabyte, okay, which is the same thing, okay, 1024 equals 1. So when you see those, if you see 512 times 4, okay, meaning if it said L1 512 times 4, it's saying how many processors exist on my CPU. This question, how many processors? If I saw L1 times 4, if it said 512 times 4, it's for L1, it's saying there's 4 processors. Each one has 512K of L1 cache. If I saw that somewhere on a page, okay? So, which would mean that right then I've got 2 meg of cache in L1, and then I'd see some number times L2, maybe, or maybe I just have L1 and L3. Sometimes I see just L2 and L3. Okay, I almost always, and I'm saying almost always because sure the possibility exists that there's always, when I look, there's always some cache that's per core and some cache that's shared. There may be processors out there that only have shared; they don't have any per core. It's possible, I suppose. I don't make them, okay? But anyway, so those are the kind of numbers that we see. We see them in these multiples from 128, and it used to be our old processors would have some really minuscule number for L1, and then a larger L2, and it used to be L2 was shared, and now really L2 seems to be for the processors, L2 is per core, and L3 is shared because L3 didn't used to exist 5 years ago. There was no such thing, 10 years ago. Okay, so we've got that cache, that static memory, and then we've got dynamic memory, okay? And the CPU uses them the same way. And they still get used the same way. It's always going to use this first because it's on itself, right? And it's going to use this second, and it's going to use this second because of all these things we're going to talk about. So tell me some stuff about dynamic memory.
Has to refresh.
Has to refresh. Thousands of times a second. It has to continually write to it. Okay? Tell me something else. We can look at these things if you want to. Compared to static, dynamic is slower, okay? It's slower than dynamic or static RAM. It's
Cost less.
yeah, it's cheaper, which is why our sticks aren't static sticks. Okay? And it's the one we put in the motherboard. Okay? And the right motherboard sticks. Okay? So that's how we buy RAM. We buy dynamic RAM. We get static RAM along with our CPU. Okay? When we talk about, just like when we talked about this, there's different sizes. When we talk about memory sticks, there's different sizes. So when we talk about our RAM, I'm going to write sticks, which exists right now is DDR2, 3, and now 4. You're not going to buy a DDR1 stick. If I ask what the current sticks of RAM are in the test, really the current sticks of RAM are 3 and 4. 2 you can still buy. They still make them because there's still systems out there to have them. But these really, if you see this on the test, DDR3 and DDR4 are the current generations of RAM. Okay? And we buy them in different sizes. Now it used to be we could buy them in 128 megabytes. We could buy them in 256 megabytes. We could buy them in 512 megabyte sticks. But really anymore you can't, right? Anymore you're looking at 1 gigabyte sticks, 2 gigabyte sticks, 4 gigabyte sticks, 8 gigabyte sticks, 16 gigabyte sticks, and 32 gigabyte sticks. I don't think there's any 64s out there. Anybody seen any 64s when they were searching? If they are, those are really new. Okay? When Brooke emailed me, I can't find a cheap enough stick. She was looking at one single 32 gigabyte stick. It was like $400. I'm like, $400 for a stick of RAM? What are you looking at, girl? Okay, because she was looking at this big, huge stick of RAM, which is ginormous. Okay, so really anymore, when we're looking at RAM and sizes, we're looking down in this range for a normal PC this is getting to a really much newer PC or a server, okay? And we usually buy them in pairs, and we buy them in pairs because of that writing technology, the dual band, so that it reads and writes in a kind of a unified way. So it's faster if we're looking for 8 gig, it's faster if we put in 2 4s than if we put in 1 8. How much faster? I don't know. I've never seen it test. Would you notice? I don't know. I guess the CPU does. Because the motherboard tells us and gives us a message. If I put in the RAM wrong and I don't put it in the right slots, it says it'd be way faster if you did this. So it must be faster. But how much faster? I don't know. The interesting article. Okay, so anyways, so we've got RAM and we put it in certain amounts, right? And we know from what we've talked about before, if we have a 32-bit operating system, how much RAM can it see? 4, right? So if we get 4 gigabytes of RAM, okay, if we've got a 32-bit operating system and it can only see 4, so no matter how much RAM I put in, I only see 4 of it. I just had to do this with the Treasures machine. I built them a real nice new i7 laptop. I took one of these nice new ones. It's got 8 gig of RAM in it, okay? And I put 64-bit on it, and it ran so fast. It's awesome. And then I had to wipe it and put 32-bit on it. It hurt me. The reason I had to, 32-bit is older, okay? And some programs only work here. Okay? That's a problem. That's why some people are stuck in the 32-bit world, even though as a society of operating systems we have moved on. We're in 64-bit land, okay? If you go to look, RAM is cheap, right? You guys have looked at RAM. Buying 8 gig instead of 4 gig, we're talking $20. Really? Okay? So why wouldn't you put more in? Because sometimes you can't help it. I gave him an 8 gig of RAM PC and put Windows 32-bit on it because I had to. Because he has a program called SmartTerm that lets him go in and do financial stuff. And that program only works on a 32-bit operating system. So I had to wipe it and put it back there. And so even though he has 8 gig of RAM, he can only see 4. Okay? However, we also have 64-bit OSs that have no limit on what they can see. Okay, the operating system lets it see whatever amount of RAM is in there. Microsoft doesn't make a server system anymore that's not 64-bit. You can't make a server that isn't 64-bit anymore. They got rid of that back in 2003. 2003 was the 2008 was the last version that had a 32-bit, and then 2008 R2 came out. So I don't know. And they've only been 64-bit since then. They still make 32-bit operating systems now because of that. In the Air Force, we have systems that have tons of RAM in them, and then have 32-bit Windows. Because somebody's got something that requires 32-bit OS, so we all get 32-bit OS. Okay, so we have this limit. And then we also learned from our reading that different version of Windows in different uses equals different amounts of RAM, okay? The different windows need different amounts of RAM, and that article talked about how much RAM do you need to run well. And that's why in our projects, we looked at home, business, and gamers, and we said 4, 8, and 16 for that, based partially on that article, because if I don't need it, there's no reason to buy it, okay? So a home basic 32-bit PC, why would I buy anything more than 4, okay? A business PC that I'm just running 64-bit on, if I've got 8 gig of RAM in there, it runs just fine, but if I've got a big gamer PC, I may want 16. My gamer PC at home's got 32, and I saw no difference when I upgraded from 16 to 32 at all. Nothing. So when do we need 32? Probably more servers or huge graphical intense programs. Okay. Okay, so we got our RAM, we got DDR1, 2, 3, and 4. We also have we've got DIMMs and we've got SODIMMs. What were the difference between those two when you guys looked at RAM? Anybody know? Which one of these did you put in your PC when you bought memory for your PC? You put DIMM, right? Okay. So this is for a PC. Anybody know what this is for?
Server?
No. DIMMs are still for servers. This is a gotcha on the test, by the way.
Aren't they old?
And no one did that. Nope, they're not old. No one did this on the presentation. No one. So it never came up. But this is the first year that no one's done this on their presentation. Okay? SODIMMs are for laptops.
Pardon me, teachers.
They're
For the
smaller.
intervention, at this time, all
Okay.
juniors, please report to the gym to take the ASVAB test.
A SODIMM compared to a DIMM, a SODIMM is, I had one on my desk, I moved it, I don't know where I put it. And it's sitting right there, so I can pick it up. Here's a DIMM, and I don't have a SODIMM standing around. Let me go grab one from the closet.
Just make sure you know
Pretty
what
different in
the
size, okay?
Oh,
You cannot stick this into this, or vice versa, okay? So that's it. Don't worry, Lane, we're recording for you. And we're almost done, so you're not gonna miss much. Okay? But those are the difference. You can't put this in here. Now, this is still a 1 gig stick of PC2 or DDR2. And this is a, I can't read it, but I'm gonna say it. I know it's DDR2. It's probably a 1 gig stick.
Do DIMMs run
Yeah, it is.
faster?
No, they're just different sizes, okay? So this is 1 gig DDR2, this is 1 gig DDR2. Okay? Why don't they just make these? I don't know. Probably they get hotter, I'm gonna guess, because it's more compacted of everything and it's all squished together. There's more stuff on each one of these chips. On this one, we've got 8 on one side and 8 on the other. On this one, we've got 4 on one side and 4 on the other. So obviously each one of these chips on here is twice as much storage as each one of those chips there. So you're getting more and less space. So it's got to get hotter faster, okay? But neither one's necessarily faster. But that's the difference between a DIMM and a SODIMM. So when I go and send you to find memory for this PC or this motherboard on your test, if it's a PC, make sure you're buying DIMMs and not SODIMMs, okay? That's what the two stand for. Yes? Think about your question while I get a glass of water. Hold on. My throat's killing me. I'm listening.
Okay. So you know how you have a cooling fan for like your CPU? Is there any sort of like heat sinks for the memory?
Well, yeah, in fact, some of them even have fans on them. And I got a mess in here, don't I? It's gotten to the point, I'm gonna have to do some cleaning before I decide. Yeah, it's obviously gotten to the point where, especially with overclock memory, that memory can get hotter and hotter. That's why when you guys looked at your memory, when you were doing your research, hopefully you came across them quite often. I should have just gone to Newegg, but here's, oh, I am in Newegg. There we go. So these are memory coolers right here that you can put over top of your RAM to keep your RAM cool. And you can see it's not expensive. It's $14. But all that does is go over top of it to pull air through it more. Okay? And then different RAM comes with these on them. And if they don't, you can buy these. This is just a little clip that goes, stop. It's a little clip that sticks onto your RAM that you can take that stick of RAM that looks just like this and put those metal heat sinks. They snap around the outside. That's the little snap. So you just put them on either side and put this clip over top of it. And it's to help this metal is to help even out, distribute, and dissipate the heat. So, and you can see these are really cheap. If I can slide over there. Okay, so that's $5.79, depending on what you're doing. If you're trying to overclock your RAM to as fast as you can get it, the last thing you want to do is burn it up, right? So you may need to do something to keep it cool, and that's what those are for. So that's a good question. Yes, it can definitely get hot. So there are heat sinks and cooling systems for RAM. And if I was an overclocker and I was trying to get the RAM to be as fast as it possibly could be, you'd want to do something like that. Okay? They may even have. Why am I not going backwards? Oh, okay. I guess I didn't click on. They may even have liquid cooling systems. I don't know. No, I'm already past. That's the only thing they got that falls under that is those few things right there. What is this one? $14.99. What is that for? Copper heat sinks for what? Easily installed with thermal tape. I don't know what that heat sink's for. I don't know what that one's for. How much time we got left before I get too far? And we're almost done with what I wanted to review, and then we're going to do some exercises next class. Where's my time? White day, 8:11. What are we looking at? Oh, we got a little bit of time. Okay. So, things that we need to take away from this chapter. Okay. First of all, we need to know that RAM is the easiest, cheapest way to upgrade our PC. If somebody says, "Hey, my PC's running slow," the cheapest upgrade and the easiest upgrade we could possibly do is this. Okay. Easy. Cheapest upgrade. Okay? It is not as easy to swap out a motherboard. It is not as easy to swap out a CPU, but it's simple to say, you've only got 2 gig of RAM. We could put 16 in this motherboard. And boom, you just pop out the one, you toss it to your neighbor, and you put in 2 8s, and voila, we're good to go. Okay? So we obviously need to know what kind of motherboard we have, because it's form factor dependent. So the motherboard drives what kind of memory we can put in. So if I say, hey, how much memory can I put in this PC? The first thing you need to do is go research on the motherboard, right? It's not a CPU thing. If I ask how much memory I can put in it, it's not even an operating system thing. It's a motherboard thing. Now, if I ask how much memory will this PC use, if I give you a link to a 32-bit PC, if I say how much will it use, the answer no matter what, if it's 32-bit, is 4. Right? You can't use more than 4. So, but I'm not going to try to trick you. Hopefully you'll read that and you go, oh, I know what he's saying, and hopefully I write it clear enough. So the motherboard drives what kind of memory, it drives what generation, whether it's DDR2 or 3 or 4, it drives what specific speed in megahertz or gigahertz that memory can take. Okay? So when we look at memory, we've got, I just said generations to look at. We have to make sure we get the right generation 2, 3, or 4, and I'm leaving 2 in there because there's still some machines here that use 2. Okay, and then the right speed. We need to make sure the megahertz rating or gigahertz rating is the correct one, and that's decided by the motherboard. And the last thing with compatibility, we need to look at the ECC or non-ECC rating, okay? Each motherboard either will take error correcting code or non-error correcting code. I have had motherboards that take both. I had some HP servers that could take either one, but it was really kind of tweaky. It would take non-ECC up to 4 meg sticks, but it would take ECC up to 8 gig sticks. I said, okay. So, but that's the last thing for our compatibility that we need to make sure we look at when we're going to buy a RAM. Do we have those three things set up? And then you can say, okay, this is compatible, then what's the best thing I can get for it? You know, and then we look at size of stick. Okay, we also have to, I guess I should have said that for our motherboard. Motherboards take certain sizes. Does it only take 1, 2, 3s, and 4s? I'm sorry, I said 3s, 1, 2s, and 4s, or does it take an 8? Does it take a 16? Those are questions that the motherboard decides. Okay, because we're almost out of time, I'm going to talk about what we're going to do next class to start off the class, and some other stuff that I've got on here. Well, let me look through, see if there's anything else on here that you said you couldn't do. Use the memory tool to analyze a PC. One person said they couldn't do that, and I can install a PC, and I'm going to just smack you because we've done that. We pulled memory out and in, but we'll do it again. Okay, so when I look at the chapter here, there's some things that I just made visible. Okay, the memory check lesson, it says BL because it was a blended assignment. We went and did that in class. Okay, but if you are the one person that said, I know how to check my memory, or I don't know how to use the memory tester, I'd like you to go and look at that lesson. Okay? Now, if you don't do good on your test and you have to retake the test, you're going to have to do these 4 activities. There's going to be the 4 activities you're going to do. Okay? This one's just on memory testing. This is on a home memory test that I would like you to do no matter what. Okay? So, basically it's saying go home, run the memory tester on your PC at home, okay, and fill in this information on your home PC. I just want you to look it up for your own edification. Okay, so it's just a little journal thing. You go, you run the PC, you test at home, and you say, what kind of PC do I have? What kind of memory does it take? How much can I buy that memory for? And here's a link that I can buy it for. Okay, it's a 5-minute at most exercise that I want you to do on a home PC.
Are we using that program that we used?
Yes.
Okay. And that's still being done.
Yeah, that's still linked. Lefty clicky's not working. So if I go right here to the memory scanner, that's still right there. Okay, so that's what that's talking about. I should have that link, honestly, inside this assignment, but I don't. I should just link it right in there. I should have left that page open, and I could have just changed that and made that link. So, anyways, I'd like you to do that one. Just so you understand how to do the test, especially for the person who said they didn't do it. And this is a test review that you don't have to do, but it's a test re-review that if you don't do well on the test, so it's kind of either way. If you want to do it just to get yourself ready for the test, that's great. But it's a number of videos that we've kind of gone through all this stuff anyway, and then, but they're all short. It's 5 minutes. Have we done Edpuzzle yet, by the way? Okay, so this one's just how to use Edpuzzle if we hadn't done it yet. Because when I originally started using Edpuzzle, this is probably where I started using it, so I had to do an instructional video on that. And then these other ones are just little Edpuzzle classes on other reviews. But here's what we're actually going to do next class, okay? So on this, basically, you're going to answer these questions based off this link, okay? So you're going to go to this link, and then each one of these is just a survey. And then you're each going to do it. Once we've all done it, we're going to look and see if we all got the same answers, because we should have the same answer. So it's going to open to this stick of RAM, and then there's a series of questions about that stick of RAM. And we're going to have time in class to do it, because I want to go over it in class. But the other things you can do prior to class if you want to get ready for the test on Wednesday, right? Wednesday, yes, Wednesday, okay? But these are things we're going to do in class together. On Monday, because Monday, right? Monday is a brown day? Yeah. Okay. So anyways, that's what we're doing, and then the test is Wednesday, and obviously, there we go. Okay. I was going to say, obviously something's wrong with his link. It's just Nuix being slow. So I will see you guys on Monday. Okay? Nope, what did I just do? Where did I go?